You're driving home. Red and blue lights flash behind you. The officer walks up, asks for license and registration. He shines his flashlight into your car and sees an envelope on your passenger seat with cash inside. Then, he asks, "Where'd you get all this cash?" Every single day, drivers answer this question, and every day that answer costs them thousands they'll never see again. I've analyzed over 500 cases where officers seized cash during routine traffic stops. I've reviewed hundreds of body cam videos showing how one sentence turns a simple stop into a financial nightmare. I'm going to show you the 5 exact words that protect your money, the 3 mistakes that guarantee you'll lose it, and the legal reality about cash that police exploit. Let's jump right in. Picture this. You just got paid in cash for a side job. Maybe you're a contractor who just finished a renovation. Maybe you sold your motorcycle. Maybe you're helping family with medical expenses and withdrew cash from the bank. $2,000 in an envelope sits on your passenger seat. Traffic stop. Broken tail light. The officer approaches. You hand over your license and registration. His flashlight sweeps across your interior and stops on the envelope. What's in the envelope? Your heart rate spikes. You're not doing anything illegal. The cash is yours. You earned it legally. So you think being honest will help. Most people do. Oh, that's just some cash I got paid today. The officer's tone shifts immediately. How much cash? About $2,000. Where'd you get it? Here's where most people make their first critical mistake. They explain. I do landscaping and got paid for a big job. Or, I sold my truck to my neighbor. Or, I withdrew it from my bank account for my mom's surgery. Sounds innocent, right? You're just being helpful and cooperative. But here's what just happened on that body cam. You admitted to having large cash. You provided a story the officer can now investigate. And if any detail doesn't check out perfectly, if your neighbor doesn't answer the phone immediately, if the bank doesn't have easily accessible records, if your explanation sounds even slightly unusual to the officer, you've just given him reasonable suspicion for civil asset forfeiture. That's the legal process where police seize your cash without ever charging you with a crime. Once they take it, getting it back requires hiring an attorney, filing motions, and fighting the government in civil court. Most people never recover their money because the legal cost of fighting exceeds the amount seized. Many give up after learning they'd spend $3,000 in attorney fees to recover $2,000. The officer didn't need a warrant. He didn't need probable cause. He just needed you to talk. And you gave him everything he needed in 15 seconds. When an officer asks where you got cash, your brain tells you explaining proves you're innocent. This is exactly what officers count on. They're trained in asset forfeiture procedures. They know most people will volunteer information that builds the case against their own money. Let me show you exactly how this escalates step by step. After you say, I got paid for landscaping, the officer asks, who paid you? You give a name. What's their phone number? You don't have it memorized. Already, your story looks shaky on camera. Where does this person live? You're not exactly sure of the full address. Now you're hesitant, uncertain, stammering. The officer's suspicion grows with every hesitation. Or maybe you said you sold your car. Who bought it? You give the name. Do you have a bill of sale? It's at home. What was the make and model? You tell him. What year? You answer. The officer goes back to his car, runs the VIN, sees the title isn't transferred yet. Now it looks like you're lying about selling a car you still legally own. On body cam, you're contradicting official records. Here's the officer psychology you need to understand. They're taught to look for specific indicators of criminal activity. Large cash is indicator 1. Nervous behavior is indicator 2. Inconsistent story is indicator 3. Travel on known drug corridors is indicator 4. That's all they need to justify seizing your money and making you prove in court that it's legitimate. The burden flips to you. The correct move is this. When the officer asks, "Where'd you get this cash?" you say exactly these words. I prefer not to answer questions. Say it calmly. Say it respectfully. Say it clearly. Don't mumble. Don't sound aggressive. I prefer not to answer questions. This is your Fifth Amendment right. You are not required to explain your finances to a police officer during a traffic stop, period. If the officer pushes back with, "Why won't you tell me? You got something to hide?" you repeat without deviation, "I'm respectfully exercising my right to remain silent." Those exact words. Not, "I don't want to talk." Not, "I'd rather not say." Not, "no comment." The legal phrase is, "I'm exercising my right to remain silent." This puts it on the record that you're invoking a constitutional protection, not hiding guilt. Remember, I prefer not to answer questions. If pushed, I'm respectfully exercising my right to remain silent. These two phrases protect you more than any explanation ever could. Practice them now. After you refuse to explain the cash source, many officers move to the next tactic. They ask permission. "You don't mind if I count it, do you?" Or, "Mind if I take a quick look in that envelope?" This is the consent trap, and it's deliberately designed to make saying no feel suspicious and uncooperative. Think about the careful phrasing. "You don't mind if I take a look, do you?" If you say yes, that sounds like agreement to search. If you say no, that sounds like you don't mind. Also agreement. The question is deliberately confusing. It's a verbal trap. Here's the before scenario. Officer says, "You don't mind if I count that cash? Make sure everything's legitimate, right?" Most people shrug and say, "Sure, go ahead." Or, "I guess that's fine." Or just hand over the envelope without speaking. The moment you consent, everything changes fundamentally. The officer now has explicit permission to handle your property. While counting, he's looking at the bills carefully. Are they worn? Are they new? Are they bundled in a way that looks like drug money? Are there rubber bands in specific colors? Is there any smell on the bills? Are the denominations mixed or uniform? He's building a case for seizure, and you invited him to do it. Worse, if he finds anything, even something you didn't know was there, a forgotten receipt with suspicious handwriting, a small amount of powder residue on a bill from normal circulation, anything at all, it's now fair game. You consented to the search. You can't later argue it was illegal or improper. Here's the after scenario, the correct way to handle this. Officer asks, "You don't mind if I count it, do you?" You say clearly and firmly, "I do not consent to any searches." Not, "I'd rather you didn't." Not, "Do you have to?" Not a question, a clear statement. "I do not consent to any searches." The officer might say, "I'm just trying to make sure everything's okay here. Just routine." You respond calmly, "I understand, officer, but I do not consent to any searches." He might try again with pressure. "If you've got nothing to hide, why not let me check real quick?" You stay firm and repeat, "I'm not required to consent, and I do not consent to any searches." This language is absolutely critical. Courts have ruled that unclear responses like, "I'd prefer you didn't," or even silence, can be interpreted as consent. You must affirmatively refuse. "I do not consent to any searches" is the gold standard phrase that creates the clearest record. Body cams record this entire interaction. Your refusal is on tape. If the officer searches anyway without legal justification, you've preserved your right to challenge it later in court. If you consent, you've waived that right forever. Let me repeat this critical phrase. I do not consent to any searches. I do not consent to any searches. I do not consent to any searches. Memorize it right now. After you refuse to answer and refuse consent, officers often shift to building probable cause through follow-up questions. These seem casual, but they're tactical. Where are you headed right now? Seems harmless. But if you say home and you're driving away from your listed address, that's suspicious. If you say to the store, but there's no store in that direction, that's inconsistent. Every answer creates a new thread to pull. Where are you coming from? Same trap. You say work. Officer asks where you work. He checks. You left work 4 hours ago. Why did it take so long? Now you're explaining stops, errands, detours. Each explanation creates more questions. Here's a dialogue exchange from a body cam case I analyzed. Officer, so where'd you get the money? Driver, I prefer not to answer questions. Officer, come on, man, I'm just curious. You working today? Driver, yes, I was at work. Officer, what do you do? Driver, I'm in construction. Officer, who do you work for? Notice what happened? The driver refused the first question, then answered the second. Once you start answering, officers assume you're willing to talk. The correct approach, after you invoke your right to silence about the cash, maintain that position for all follow-up questions. Officer, where are you coming from? You, I'm respectfully not answering questions. Officer, just making conversation. Where do you work? You, I've invoked my right to remain silent. Officer, why are you being difficult? You, I'm not trying to be difficult, officer. I'm simply exercising my rights. Stay calm. Stay polite. Stay consistent. Do not let casual conversation trick you into abandoning the protection you just invoked. If the officer claims you're being suspicious, remember this. Asserting your rights is not evidence of guilt. Courts have repeatedly held that refusing to answer questions cannot be used as probable cause. Your silence protects you. Your answers endanger you. Here's what most people don't know. Police can seize cash without charging you with a crime. It's called civil asset forfeiture. The government files a case against your property, not against you. The case is literally titled United States versus $2,000 in currency. To get your money back, you have to prove it's not connected to illegal activity. You, not them. This flips the normal legal standard completely. This varies significantly by state. In Texas, if officers claim cash is connected to criminal activity and you can't immediately prove otherwise on the spot, they can seize it right there. In New Mexico, the state passed strong reforms requiring an actual criminal conviction before permanent forfeiture. But in most states, the burden falls on you to fight in civil court, hire attorneys, and prove your innocence. Case law matters here. In United States versus $83,250, the Eighth Circuit ruled that traveling with large cash in a hidden compartment can justify seizure even without other evidence of crime. What triggers seizure? Officers look for indicators. Large cash amounts, usually over $1,000, traveling on known drug corridors, nervousness, conflicting stories, cash bundled in specific ways. Any of these can be used to claim reasonable suspicion. Here's the critical point. Your explanations don't help you. They hurt you. Because if your story has any inconsistency, that becomes evidence against your money. The only protection is refusing to provide that story. No answers means no inconsistencies. No inconsistencies means no ammunition for seizure. Let me give you the complete protocol for protecting yourself when an officer sees cash in your vehicle. Follow these 4 steps in exact sequence. Step 1. Physical safety comes first. When the officer approaches and sees the cash, keep both hands visible on the steering wheel. Do not reach for the envelope. Do not touch the money. Announce your actions clearly. Officer, my hands are on the steering wheel and I'm not reaching for anything. This establishes on body cam that you're not a threat. Step 2. Determine request versus order. If the officer says, "Can you tell me about that cash?" Those are requests you can decline. But if the officer says, "Tell me where you got that cash," That sounds like an order. Before you respond, clarify. Officer, are you asking me or ordering me to answer? If it's a request, you decline. I prefer not to answer questions. If it's an order, you ask, for the record, what is the lawful basis for ordering me to answer questions about my personal finances? This forces the officer to articulate legal justification. The stop was for a traffic violation. Your financial information is not relevant to a broken taillight. Step 3. Invoke recording protocol. State clearly, for everyone's safety, I'm recording this interaction as well. This reminds the officer their body cam is running. If the officer asks why you're recording, respond, just for transparency, officer. Step 4. Use the exact phrase sequence. When the officer asks about cash, you respond, I prefer not to answer questions. If the officer asks to count or search, I do not consent to any searches. If the officer continues asking questions, I'm respectfully exercising my right to remain silent. If the officer asks if you're refusing to cooperate, I'm cooperating fully with the traffic stop, officer. I'm simply exercising my constitutional rights. These 4 phrases create a complete legal shield. Here's what officers do when you refuse to answer. Some will respect your rights and move on. Your refusal alone is not grounds for detention or seizure, but others will push back. Look, I'm trying to help you out here. That's not true. Anything you say will be used against you. If you just explain, this can all be cleared up quickly. Also false. Fine, we'll do this the hard way. I'm calling a K-9 unit. Here's the legal reality. Officers cannot prolong a traffic stop beyond the time needed to issue a citation just to wait for a drug dog. This comes from Rodriguez versus United States. If the officer finished writing your ticket, you ask, am I free to leave? Your refusal to answer questions is not reasonable suspicion. Courts have held this repeatedly. Some officers will try, I'm going to search anyway, so you might as well consent. This is a bluff. If they had legal grounds to search, they wouldn't ask permission. Don't give it. If they seize your cash despite your refusal, ask for a seizure receipt. Get the officer's name and badge number. Note the time and location. Contact an attorney within 72 hours. Many jurisdictions have short deadlines for challenging seizures. Your refusal to consent and your invocation of rights actually strengthen your position for getting money returned. Here's the core principle. When police ask about your money, your answers can only hurt you, never help you. Explanations create inconsistencies. Inconsistencies create suspicion. Suspicion justifies seizure. Silence stops this chain before it starts. Remember the 4 essential phrases for any police encounter. Number 1, am I free to leave? Number 2, I prefer not to answer questions, or I'm exercising my right to remain silent. Number 3, I'm not under arrest. Number 4, I'm not under arrest. 3, I want to speak with an attorney. Number 4, I do not consent to any searches. Print out these 4 phrases. Keep them in your wallet. Practice saying them out loud until they're automatic. Remember, this is educational content only, not legal advice. Always consult with a qualified attorney in your state for your specific situation. If this video helped you, hit that like button. Subscribe for more traffic stop legal breakdowns. Share this with anyone who needs to know how to protect themselves during police encounters. Your money is your property. Your rights are your shield. Know both, use both, and you'll never be the person handing over cash because you didn't know what to say. Stay informed, stay protected, and remember, silence is power.